They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but nobody tells you how satisfying it tastes when it's still burning hot from the kitchen of your own rage. My name is Jake Morrison, and I used to think I was living the American dream. 43 years old, married to a beautiful woman, decent job at Midwest Logistics, a house in the suburbs with a 2-car garage, and neighbors who waved when they saw you mowing the lawn. I was the guy who believed in loyalty, hard work, and keeping your word. What a cruel joke that turned out to be. The night everything went to pieces started like any other company party. Harrison Industries was celebrating another profitable quarter, and the banquet hall at the Riverside Hotel was packed with middle management types nursing cheap wine and pretending to enjoy each other's company. My wife Nadia looked stunning in her black cocktail dress, her auburn hair pulled back in that way that made my chest tighten with pride. She worked for a PR firm downtown, all polish and ambition, while I dealt with shipping manifests and warehouse schedules. We were different, but it worked, or so I thought. Derek Paulson, my boss and supposed friend of 15 years, had been drinking heavily. He was one of those guys who thought money and position gave him license to say whatever popped into his alcohol-soaked brain. We'd known each other since college, back when he was just another business major with big dreams and a bigger mouth. "Hey, Jake," Derek's voice boomed across the table, drawing attention from nearby conversations. "I've got a proposition for you, buddy." I should have seen it coming. The smirk on his face, the way Nadia suddenly became very interested in her wine glass, the uncomfortable silence that settled over our table like a heavy blanket. "Tomorrow," Derek announced, loud enough for half the room to hear, "your wife is going on vacation with me, or you're fired." The words hit me like a physical blow. But it was Nadia's reaction that really destroyed me. She didn't look shocked or offended. She didn't tell Derek to shut his mouth or defend our marriage. Instead, she laughed. Not a nervous laugh or an uncomfortable giggle. A real, genuine laugh that suggested she found the whole thing hilarious. "I agree," she said, raising her glass in a mock toast. The table erupted in laughter. Coworkers, their spouses, people I'd worked alongside for years, they all thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. Jake Morrison, the loyal husband, the reliable worker bee, getting humiliated in public for everyone's entertainment. Something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped. Like a rubber band stretched too far, releasing all that stored tension in one violent moment. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor with a sound that cut through the laughter. Every eye at the table turned to me, expecting what? An embarrassed smile, a weak protest? Maybe for me to play along with the joke like a good sport? Instead, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope I'd been carrying around for 3 days. Inside were printouts of emails I'd accidentally discovered on Nadia's laptop. Messages between her and Derek, between her and her best friend Sonia, between her and half the office, talking about me like I was some pathetic loser who deserved whatever he got. "Since we're sharing jokes," I said, my voice carrying further than I'd intended, "I've got some material of my own." I started distributing the pages like party favors. Nadia's face went white as she recognized her own words coming back to haunt her. Derek's smug expression melted into confusion, then horror, as he realized what he was looking at. "These are some of my wife's greatest hits," I announced to the now silent room. Her reviews of our love life, her opinions about my career prospects, and my personal favorite, her detailed plans for spending my life insurance money after I die. The last page I saved for Derek. It was a printed screenshot of a text conversation between him and Nadia, discussing the best ways to humiliate me at this very party. The final message, sent just 2 hours earlier, read, "He's so pathetic he'll probably just sit there and take it. God, I can't wait to be rid of him." I placed it in front of Derek with the care of a man setting down a winning poker hand. "Congratulations," I said. "You got your wish. We're getting divorced." The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop in that banquet hall, which made my footsteps echo like cracks of thunder as I walked toward the exit. Derek caught up with me in the lobby, his face flushed with panic and alcohol. "Jake, wait. It was just a joke, man. Everyone got it but Nadia. She doesn't understand our sense of humor. Look, I feel terrible about this. How about a promotion? You can have Henderson's office when he retires next month." I looked at him for a long moment, this man I'd trusted, this friend who'd just tried to destroy my marriage for a laugh. "Thanks," I said. "I'll take the promotion and your parking spot, and I think I'll need your company car too, since mine is getting a bit old." Derek nodded eagerly, relief flooding his features. Sure, whatever you need. One more thing, I added, pushing through the lobby doors. Tell everyone the party's over. They're going to have a lot to talk about tomorrow. The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Nadia rode in silence, staring out the passenger window like she could will herself into another dimension. The radio played some mindless pop song about love conquering all, and I almost laughed at the cosmic joke of it. Our house sat on Maple Street in one of those neighborhoods where people still believed in the illusion of the perfect American family. White picket fences, manicured lawns, and secrets buried so deep they'd need archaeological equipment to dig them up. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled. This was my house. I'd made every mortgage payment for 12 years, fixed every broken pipe, painted every room, but suddenly it felt like enemy territory. We need to talk, Nadia said, finally breaking the silence. No, I replied, getting out of the car. We really don't. Inside, I went straight to the guest bedroom and started pulling sheets from the linen closet. Nadia followed me, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor like a countdown timer. You're being ridiculous, she said. It was a stupid joke that got out of hand. I stopped what I was doing and turned to face her. In the harsh hallway light, I could see the makeup caked around her eyes, the careful construction that went into being Nadia Morrison, successful professional and devoted wife. It was all just paint and performance. Which part was the joke? I asked. Derek's proposition, your enthusiastic agreement, or the part where you've been planning to leave me for months? She had the grace to look ashamed, but it was too little and way too late. I never meant for you to see those messages. That's what you're sorry about? Getting caught? Nadia sat down heavily on the hallway bench, suddenly looking older than her 38 years. I'm sorry about all of it, Jake. I know that doesn't mean much now, but I am. Things between us, they've been difficult for a long time. Difficult for you, maybe. I thought we were fine. That's the problem. You thought everything was fine while I was drowning. I finished making the bed with sharp, angry movements. So you decided to sleep with my boss instead of talking to your husband. It wasn't supposed to happen. Derek and I were working on that merger proposal, spending long hours together, and things just developed. I tested the word like it tasted bad. Is that what we're calling adultery now? Don't be cruel. The sheer audacity of that statement stopped me cold. I'm being cruel? You humiliated me in front of everyone I work with. You've been cheating on me for God knows how long, and you're worried about me being cruel? Nadia stood up, some of her old fire returning. You want to know the truth? Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Derek. Yes, I was planning to leave you. But not because I'm some heartless witch who gets off on destroying people. Because I'm tired, Jake. I'm tired of being married to someone who's perfectly content with mediocrity. Mediocrity? When was the last time you had an ambition beyond making it through another day? When was the last time you surprised me or challenged me or made me feel like I was married to a man instead of a comfortable piece of furniture? Her words hit harder than Derek's public humiliation because there was truth in them. I had gotten comfortable. I had stopped trying to impress her, stopped working to be the man she fell in love with. But that didn't justify what she'd done. So you decided to trade me in for a newer model. I decided to find someone who actually wanted something more from life than a steady paycheck and a quiet evening at home. I looked at this woman I'd loved for 15 years, really looked at her, and realized I didn't know her at all. The Nadia I'd married would never have said those things. She would never have betrayed me so casually, so completely. Pack a bag, I said quietly. What? Pack a bag and go stay with Derek or Sonia or whoever else is in on this little conspiracy. I need time to think, and I can't do that with you here. This is my house, too. Actually, it's not. It's in my name only, remember? You insisted on keeping your maiden name and your financial independence. Congratulations, you got what you wanted. Nadia's face crumpled, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Jake, please, we can work through this. No, we can't. You made sure of that tonight. She left an hour later with a suitcase and her laptop, promising to call me in a few days when I'd had time to cool down. I watched her taillights disappear down Maple Street and felt something die inside my chest. The house was too quiet without her. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my recliner, staring at the family photos on the mantel. Jake and Nadia on their wedding day. Jake and Nadia at the Grand Canyon. Jake and Nadia at Derek's housewarming party 5 years ago. All smiles and friendship. I wondered how long they'd been laughing at me behind my back. The next morning brought a hangover and a new reality. I called in sick to work, the first time in 3 years, and spent the day doing what any rational man would do in my situation. I planned my revenge. People think revenge is about anger, but they're wrong. Anger's hot and stupid and gets you arrested. Revenge is cold calculation, patience, and the systematic destruction of everything your enemies hold dear. I'd been angry the night before. Today, I was something much more dangerous. I started with research. Nadia had been sloppy with her digital security, probably because she never expected me to look. Her laptop was still synced to her phone, her email accounts were saved in the browser, and she'd never bothered to change the passwords to her social media accounts. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The affair with Derek had been going on for 8 months, not the few weeks she'd implied. They had plans to move in together after she divorced me. She'd already consulted a lawyer about asset division and alimony. But the real kicker was the group chat between Nadia, Derek, and Sonia Martinez, her best friend and maid of honor at our wedding. They called it Operation Doormat, and it was a detailed plan to manipulate me into asking for the divorce so Nadia could claim emotional misuse and get a better settlement. The party humiliation was supposed to be the final straw, the thing that would make me snap and give her grounds for a restraining order. They'd underestimated me. I wasn't going to snap. I was going to methodically dismantle their lives piece by piece, and I was going to enjoy every minute of it. Step 1 was financial. I emptied our joint savings account. All $43,000 that I'd contributed over the years while Nadia spent her salary on clothes and spa treatments. Legally, it was my money. Morally, I didn't give a crap. Step 2 was professional. I had copies of Derek's expense reports going back 2 years, showing a pattern of fraudulent charges and personal expenses billed to the company. I also had evidence of his relationship with Nadia, which violated the company's fraternization policy since she was technically a vendor through her PR firm. I packaged everything up and sent it anonymously to Derek's boss, the head of HR, and the company's ethics hotline. Step 3 was social. I created anonymous accounts on every platform Nadia used and began a careful campaign of reputation destruction. Nothing illegal, nothing that could be traced back to me. Just the truth, spread far and wide for everyone to see. By noon, my phone was ringing off the hook. "Jake, what the heck did you do?" It was my brother-in-law, Marcus, calling from his office in Chicago. "I told the truth. Revolutionary concept, I know. Nadia's in tears. She says you're trying to destroy her life. She destroyed her own life. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. She made a mistake, Jake. People make mistakes. Sleeping with my boss for 8 months and planning to frame me for emotional misuse isn't a mistake, Marcus. It's a conspiracy." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. She told me it was just the one night, that she was drunk and made a terrible decision. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "She's been lying to you too. Want to see the evidence?" I sent him screenshots of the group chat, the hotel receipts, the detailed plans for my destruction. Marcus went quiet for a long time after that. "Jesus Christ," he finally whispered. "Yeah, Jesus Christ. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Nadia Morrison really is, starting with her family." I spent the rest of the day making phone calls. Nadia's parents, her sister, her college friends, her professional network. I didn't have to lie or exaggerate. The truth was devastating enough. By evening, my phone had stopped ringing. The silence was almost peaceful. I was heating up leftover pizza when someone started pounding on my front door. Through the peephole, I could see Derek's red face twisted with rage. "Open this door, you son of a witch!" I took my time walking to the door, pizza slice in hand. "Derek," I said pleasantly, "how was your day at work? You know exactly how my day was, you bastard. They suspended me pending investigation. That's terrible. Have you considered not committing fraud?" Derek pushed past me into the house. His expensive suit wrinkled, and his cologne unable to mask the smell of desperation sweat. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Sitting in your little house, playing with your little revenge fantasies? You have no idea what you're dealing with. Enlighten me." Derek turned to face me, and I saw something dangerous in his eyes. This wasn't just about his job or even his relationship with Nadia. This was about power and control and a man who wasn't used to losing. You want to play hardball? Fine. I've got friends you've never heard of, connections that go way beyond our little company. I can make your life very difficult, Jake. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Drop this vendetta, apologize to Nadia, and maybe we can all walk away from this like adults. I set down my pizza and looked at Derek, really looked at him. He was bigger than me, younger, with the kind of confidence that came from never having to face real consequences. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd threatened me in my own house. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my house before I call the police and report you for trespassing and making threats. Derek laughed. You think the cops are going to help you? I play golf with the police chief, you pathetic little man. That's when I knew Derek had to be destroyed completely. Not just fired, not just embarrassed. Utterly ruined. We'll see about that, I said, opening the front door. Have a good evening, Derek. Enjoy it while you can. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. I was drinking coffee and reading the online comments about Nadia's professional reputation when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see Tom Bradley and Mike Chen, two guys I'd considered friends for the better part of a decade. I opened the door with a smile. Tom, Mike, this is a surprise. They didn't smile back. We need to talk, Jake, Tom said, his voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. I stepped aside to let them in, already sensing this wasn't going to be a social call. Tom and Mike had been part of our regular poker group, along with Derek and a few other guys from the neighborhood. We'd barbecued together, watched football, complained about our wives and our jobs like men do. Coffee, I offered. This isn't a social visit, Mike said, settling his bulk into my armchair like he owned the place. Mike worked construction, all muscle and attitude, the kind of guy who settled disputes with his fists when words failed. I figured, what's on your minds? Tom, who sold insurance and had the smooth manner of a professional negotiator, took the lead. We heard about what happened at the party, and we heard about what you've been doing since. Which part? The part where I found out my wife was cheating, or the part where I decided not to take it lying down? The part where you're acting like a vindictive a-hole, Mike said bluntly. Nadia called Jennifer in tears yesterday. She's staying at our place until this blows over. Jennifer was Mike's wife, part of the same social circle that had sustained us all for years. I should have expected them to close ranks, but it still stung. So you're here to what? Defend her honor? We're here to tell you to knock it off, Tom said. Whatever problems you and Nadia have, you work them out between yourselves. You don't drag the whole neighborhood into it. I sat down across from them, studying their faces. These were men I'd trusted, men I'd helped move furniture and lent tools to, men who'd eaten at my table and told me I was lucky to have a woman like Nadia. Did she tell you about Derek? Tom and Mike exchanged glances. She told us she made a mistake, Tom said carefully. A mistake, right. Did she tell you it lasted 8 months? Did she tell you about the group chat where they planned to frame me for misuse? Did she tell you about the money she's been hiding in a separate account? That's between you and her, Mike said. But his voice had lost some of its conviction. Is it? Because last I checked, you two were the ones sitting in my living room telling me how to handle my marriage. I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshots I'd compiled, the hotel receipts, the text messages, the detailed discussions about my inadequacies as a husband and a man. Tom went pale as he read. Mike's jaw tightened with each revelation. This doesn't change anything, Mike said finally, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. Doesn't it? Because it seems to me like you came here to defend someone who's been lying to all of us for months. What she did was wrong, Tom admitted, but what you're doing is worse. You're trying to destroy her completely. I'm trying to make sure people know the truth. You're trying to get revenge, Mike said, and you're using us to do it. How am I using you? By putting us in the middle of this mess. Our wives are friends with Nadia. Our kids go to school together. You think we can just pretend none of this happened? And there it was, the real reason for their visit. Not moral outrage or concern for justice, but the simple desire known to maintain the status quo. They wanted me to swallow my humiliation quietly, so their own lives wouldn't be disrupted. So what are you suggesting? That I pretend my wife didn't cheat on me? That I shake Derek's hand and thank him for the lesson in humility? We're suggesting you handle this like an adult, Tom said. Get a lawyer, file for divorce, divide the assets, and move on with your life. While they get away with everything. While everyone gets to keep their dignity, Mike corrected. I looked at these two men, these friends who'd apparently decided that my dignity was less important than their comfort, and felt something cold settle in my chest. I see, and if I don't agree to quietly disappear, then we can't be friends anymore, Tom said simply. Jennifer won't let me associate with someone who's trying to destroy her friend. And honestly, Jake, I'm not sure I want to. Same here, Mike added. What you're doing isn't right, man. It's not who you used to be. You're right, I said, standing up. The old Jake would have taken this beating and asked for another. The old Jake would have worried more about everyone else's feelings than his own self-respect. But the old Jake was a fool. So what does that make the new Jake? Tom asked. I walked to the front door and opened it. Smarter. They left without another word, and I watched them drive away knowing I'd lost 2 more pieces of my old life. But I'd also gained something valuable. Clarity about who my real friends were. The answer, apparently, was nobody. 3 days later, they came back. Not just Tom and Mike, but the whole crew. Derek, Nadia, Sonia, and Jennifer. They'd apparently decided that a group intervention was what the situation called for. I was in my garage working on my old Mustang when they pulled up. 6 people climbing out of 2 cars like some kind of suburban SWAT team. I wiped my hands on a rag and waited for them to make the first move. Derek stepped forward trying to project authority despite the fact that he'd been suspended from his job and was facing a company investigation. We need to talk, Jake. Seems like everyone wants to talk to me these days. I'm starting to feel popular. Nadia looked terrible. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled, her eyes red from crying. Part of me felt sorry for her, but I pushed that feeling down deep where it couldn't interfere with what needed to be done. Please, she said. Can we go inside? People are starting to stare. I looked around at the neighbors who'd begun to gather on their porches and in their driveways. Word had spread quickly through our little community, and everyone wanted a front row seat for the Morrison family meltdown. I like it out here. Fresh air, open space, good for honest conversation. There's nothing honest about what you're doing, Sonia said, speaking for the first time. She was a small, sharp-featured woman who'd never liked me much, even before all this started. You're trying to destroy people's lives out of spite. I'm revealing the truth about people who tried to destroy my life. There's a difference. The truth? Derek laughed bitterly. Your version of the truth, maybe. But you're leaving out some important context. Such as the fact that your marriage has been dead for years. Such as the fact that Nadia tried to talk to you about your problems and you ignored her. Such as the fact that she only turned to me because she was lonely and desperate. I set down my tools and gave Derek my full attention. So you're the hero in this story? The knight in shining armor who rescued my wife from her terrible husband. I'm someone who recognized that she deserved better than a man who'd given up on life, by sleeping with her behind my back for 8 months, by showing her what it felt like to be appreciated again. The casual arrogance of his statement took my breath away. Here was a man who'd betrayed 15 years of friendship, violated his professional ethics, and helped orchestrate my public humiliation. And he genuinely believed he was the good guy. And the plan to frame me for misuse? Was that part of appreciating her too? Derek's face flushed red. That was never the plan. I have the text messages, Derek. I have the whole conversation where you, Nadia, and Sonia discussed the best way to make me look like an unstable husband. We were venting, Sonia interjected. People say things when they're frustrated that they don't really mean. Like when you called me a pathetic loser who deserved whatever he got. That was taken out of context. I pulled out my phone and started reading directly from their group chat. Jake is so predictable. Push the right buttons and he'll explode. Then we can use his reaction to justify everything. Does that sound like venting to you? Nadia stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted it to go this far, Jake. I felt trapped. I felt like I was disappearing in our marriage. So you decided to make me disappear instead. I decided to find a way out that didn't destroy both of us. By destroying just me. By protecting myself. Her voice cracked on the last word. And for a moment the old Nadia was visible beneath the mask of the woman who'd betrayed me. But I couldn't let myself be swayed by tears and regret. Not when I knew how calculated everything had been. You want to know what I think? I said, looking at each of them in turn. I think you're all here because your plan backfired. You expected me to roll over and take it, maybe cause a small scene that you could use against me later. Instead, I fought back, and now you're all facing consequences you never anticipated. We're here because we care about you, Tom said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, you're here because you're scared. Derek's scared he's going to lose his job. Nadia's scared she's going to lose her reputation. Sonia's scared people are going to find out she was the mastermind behind this whole thing. And you and Mike are scared your wives are going to make your lives miserable if you don't fix this. What do you want, Jake? Mike asked bluntly. What's it going to take to end this? I looked at him for a long moment, this man who'd been my friend for 10 years and was now treating me like a problem to be solved. I want them to face the consequences of their choices. I want Derek to lose his job and his reputation. I want Nadia to understand what it feels like to have your life destroyed by someone you trusted. And I want Sonia to explain to everyone why she thought it would be fun to orchestrate the destruction of a marriage. That's not going to happen, Derek said. We're not going to let you destroy us to satisfy your wounded ego. My wounded ego? I laughed, and the sound was harsh even to my own ears. You think this is about ego? What else would it be? I walked over to Derek until we were standing face to face. He was taller than me, broader, but I could see fear in his eyes despite his bravado. This is about justice, I said quietly. This is about making sure that people who destroy other people's lives don't get to walk away without consequences. And what about your consequences? Nadia asked. What about the fact that you're becoming someone I don't even recognize? I turned to look at her, this woman I'd loved for 15 years, this stranger who'd shared my bed while planning my destruction. Good, I said. The man you knew was weak enough to let you get away with this. The man I'm becoming won't make that mistake. Jake, Jennifer said, speaking for the first time, this has to stop. You're tearing apart our whole community. I didn't tear it apart. I just exposed the cracks that were already there. So what happens now? Tom asked. I looked at all of them, these people who'd been part of my life for so long, and realized that chapter was over. There was no going back, no reconciliation, no peaceful resolution that would satisfy everyone. Now you leave, I said, and you don't come back. Jake, Nadia started, get off my property, all of you, and don't come back unless you want me to call the police. They left in angry silence, but I could see the defeat in their posture. They'd played their last card, and it hadn't worked. Now they'd have to face the consequences of their choices without my cooperation or forgiveness. I went back to working on my car, but my hands were shaking too badly to hold the tools steady. The confrontation had cost me more than I'd expected, not because I regretted what I'd said, but because I finally understood how alone I really was. 2 weeks later, I was ready to play my final card. The company investigation had concluded that Derek had indeed committed fraud and violated ethics policies. He'd been terminated and was facing potential criminal charges. Nadia's PR firm had quietly let her go after several clients complained about the negative publicity. Sonia had been forced to resign from her position at the bank when her role in the conspiracy became public knowledge. But I wasn't satisfied. They were all still in town, still part of the community, still able to rebuild their lives and reputations over time. What I wanted was complete and total destruction, the kind that follows you wherever you go. The opportunity came in the form of the annual Riverside Community Festival, a weekend-long celebration that brought together everyone in our little corner of suburbia. There would be food trucks, live music, games for the kids, and a beer garden, where all the adults would gather to gossip and catch up on the latest drama. I'd been planning this moment for weeks, gathering evidence, preparing my presentation, making sure every detail was perfect. Because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about truth, justice, and making sure that people understood the real cost of betrayal. I arrived at the festival early before the crowds gathered and set up my booth between the face painting station and the local real estate agent's display. I'd registered as a vendor, claiming I was promoting a new consulting business. Technically, that wasn't a lie. I was consulting people on the dangers of trusting the wrong people. My display was simple but effective. 3 large poster boards covered with printed emails, text messages, bank records, hotel receipts, and photographs. Everything documented, everything verified, everything legally obtained. The story of my marriage's destruction told in excruciating detail for anyone who cared to read it. The title banner read, "The Truth About Operation Doormat, a Case Study in Betrayal." People started gathering around my booth within an hour of the festival's opening. At first, it was just curiosity seekers, drawn by the unusual display. But word spread quickly. and soon I had a crowd of neighbors, coworkers, and community members reading the evidence with growing shock and outrage. "Is this real?" asked Mrs. Patterson from down the street. "Every word," I replied. "Every document is authenticated and verified." "My God," whispered Bob Chen, Mike's father. "I had no idea it was this bad." The crowd grew larger as the day progressed. People took photos of the displays I shared them on social media, called friends and family to come see for themselves. By afternoon, my booth had become the main attraction of the festival. That's when Derek, Nadia, and Sonia arrived. I saw them pushing through the crowd, their faces twisted with rage and desperation. Derek reached my booth first, his expensive casual wear looking out of place among the festival's relaxed atmosphere. "You son of a witch," he snarled. "This is maltreatment. This is defamation." "This is the truth," I replied calmly. "Everything here is documented fact. If you think it's defamation, you're welcome to sue me." "We will," Sonia said, her voice shaking with fury. "We'll destroy you in court." "With what money? Last I heard you were all unemployed." Nadia stepped forward and I could see she'd been crying. "Jake, please, haven't you done enough? Haven't you hurt us enough?" I looked at her, this woman who'd shared my life for 15 years, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "Have I hurt you as much as you hurt me? Have I betrayed you as completely as you betrayed me? Have I humiliated you as thoroughly as you humiliated me?" "We made mistakes. You made choices," I corrected. "And choices have consequences." Derek tried to push past me to tear down the displays, but I'd anticipated that. I grabbed his wrist and twisted it just enough to get his attention. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," I said quietly. "There are about 50 people here with cameras, and attack charges won't help your legal situation." "You're insane," he said, but he backed away. "I'm thorough. There's a difference." The crowd around us had grown silent, watching the drama unfold like spectators at a gladiator match. I could see Tom and Mike at the edge of the group, their faces pale with shock and disgust. Not at me, I realized, but at the evidence they were seeing for the first time. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, my voice carrying across the festival grounds. "I'd like to introduce you to the stars of my display. Derek Paulson, former executive and current fraud defendant. Nadia Morrison, my soon-to-be ex-wife and aspiring homewrecker. And Sonia Martinez, the mastermind who thought it would be fun to destroy a marriage for sport." The crowd's murmur grew louder, uglier. These were people who'd known us all for years, who'd attended our barbecues and holiday parties, who'd considered us friends and neighbors. Seeing the evidence of such calculated betrayal had shaken their faith in everything they thought they knew. "This is sick," Jennifer said, pushing through the crowd. "Jake, this is sick and wrong, and you need to stop." "What's sick is what they did to me. What's wrong is that they thought they could get away with it. And what needs to stop is people like you protecting them from the consequences of their actions." "We're not protecting anyone," Tom said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Aren't you? When you came to my house and told me to handle this quietly, weren't you protecting them? When you chose their comfort over my justice, weren't you protecting them?" Tom didn't answer, but I could see the shame in his eyes. Derek made one last desperate play. "You want to know the real truth?" he shouted. "Your marriage was a joke long before I came along. Nadia was miserable for years, trapped with a man who had no ambition, no passion, no drive. I didn't destroy your marriage, Jake. You did." The crowd went completely silent. Even the festival music seemed to fade into the background. I smiled at Derek, and it was the coldest expression I'd ever worn. "You're absolutely right," I said. "I was a terrible husband. I was complacent, unambitious, and boring. I took Nadia for granted and stopped working to deserve her love." Derek's face showed confusion. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. "But here's the thing," I continued. "Being a bad husband doesn't justify adultery. Being boring doesn't excuse fraud. Being complacent doesn't make conspiracy acceptable. You could have ended the friendship. Nadia could have asked for a divorce. Sonia could have minded her own business. Instead, you chose to destroy me for your own entertainment." I turned to address the crowd directly. "Everyone here has made mistakes in their relationships. Everyone here has been disappointed by someone they loved. But how many of you would respond by systematically destroying that person's life? How many of you would humiliate them publicly, steal from them, and frame them for misuse?" The silence that followed was absolute. That's the difference between normal human failure and what these three did to me. That's why they deserve everything that's happened to them, and everything that's going to happen to them. Derek, Nadia, and Sonia left the festival shortly after that, their faces burning with shame and rage. They'd lost the battle for public opinion completely and irreversibly. I stayed until the festival ended, answering questions, accepting condolences, and watching as my former friends tried to process the reality of what they'd witnessed. Some approached me with apologies, finally understanding why I'd been so angry and unforgiving. Others kept their distance, still uncomfortable with the level of revenge I'd pursued. I didn't care about their comfort anymore. As the sun set over the festival grounds, I packed up my displays with a sense of completion I hadn't felt in months. It was over. Not just the marriage, not just the betrayal, but the entire chapter of my life that had included these people. Tomorrow, I would start building something new, something better, something that couldn't be destroyed by people who mistook kindness for weakness. Derek Paulson, Nadia Morrison, and Sonia Martinez had taught me a valuable lesson about the nature of human loyalty and the price of trust. In return, I'd taught them about the consequences of betrayal and the power of truth. It was a fair trade. I drove home through the quiet streets of our neighborhood, past the houses where people were probably discussing what they'd witnessed, past the lives that would continue long after I was gone. Because I was leaving. There was nothing left for me here, except memories and ghosts. In my driveway, I sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house I'd called home for so many years. Tomorrow, I would call a realtor. Next week, I would start packing. Next month, I would be somewhere else entirely, starting over with the hard-earned wisdom of a man who had learned the difference between justice and revenge. They were the same thing, it turned out. The only difference was in the telling.